A bhur na Galway, a Uachtar na Garamana, Ms. Daniela Schatt, a Hochty Dála, Will Shanad Ulscail na Hern, Cahirluck, Udras na Hulscala, Ambassadori, Colakaha, Auswini Ushna Galer. Is more an or dumsa, Falchis Feha Corov Galer, Guji Sharmanish Brunta Kema Oni, in Ulscail na Hern Galway in you. Law more is seal na Hulscala, is Sha Law Brunna Kemi Oni. Law am Runnimage on Gradamis Orja Tar Fallagin, or Gwynna Gawil, or Tleshi Shiver Ball, Eichtana Banchamahega in a heel fain. Mayor of Galway, Your Excellency the President of Germany, Miss Daniela Schatt, TDs, members of the NUI Senate, Chair of Udras na Hulscala, ambassadors, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you here to NUI Galway today on the occasion of the conferring of an honorary degree on our very distinguished guest, His Excellency Mr. Joachim Gauck, President of the Federal Republic of Germany. The honorary doctorate is the highest honor the university can bestow. By honoring this truly outstanding individual, we pay tribute to his great achievements in promoting European democracy and human rights. His contribution has been remarkable, and NUI Galway is very pleased to recognise and to honour him. I believe, however, that equally President Gauck honours us by his presence here. We thank you for being with us today and for visiting our Irish Centre for Human Rights here on the campus, where he just participated in the Roundtable Symposium on Human Rights and Development with Uachtar na Hern, Michael T. Higgins. Very shortly now you will hear about the achievements of our honorary graduate from Professor Michael O'Flaherty, Director of the Irish Centre for Human Rights. Following this short ceremony, we will also have a formal address from our guest, President Gauck. When the conferring formalities are completed, and after President Gauck's address, you are all invited outside the aula to the quadrangle for reception. Can I now invite Ms. Caroline Knocknan, Academic Secretary NUI Galway, to declare this meeting of the university open, following which the honorary graduand will be introduced by Professor Michael O'Flaherty and presented for conferring. Gormila Magi, agus ban sult as an ócáid.
Pre honorables praeses, totaque universitas, hic comitia universitaria hodia convocatus sunt, ut quide momines maxime exami ad gradus academicus honoris causa admittantur. Doctoratus in utroque iure honoris causa, Professor Michael O'Flaherty, presentabit Joachim Gauck.
Uachtar na Garamana, a bhainte na Hulscala, agus a Cuine Uisle. When a university confers on a head of state an honorary doctorate, it pays tribute to the distinguished holder of that office. It also acknowledges and shows respect for the achievements of his or her country and the impact it has had for the advancement of societies, including our own. Gathered today, to witness the awarding of the degree to His Excellency the President of the Federal Republic of Germany, I am reminded of a monument that you can find at the southwest entrance to St. Stephen's Green in Dublin. There you will find a restrained and beautiful sculptural composition by the 20th century German artist Josef Wackerle, presented to Ireland by the German state. The piece was gifted in gratitude for Ireland's role in fostering hundreds of German children after World War II. But what is relevant for us today is its subject. 3 female figures understood to represent the 3 graces, figures from Greek mythology who are the inspirers of the qualities of wisdom, love, culture, and social interaction. I have no idea what was in the mind of Vakula when he created the piece, but it is not at all far-fetched to understand his Dublin sculpture as a valid representation of Germany, of a place that values learning, honor, virtue, and community, and has done so much to shape modern senses of self and of group identity. Time and time again, German thinkers pointed humankind in new and enriching directions. Without Martin Luther, it is not at all clear how we would have emerged from medievalism. German thought often tempered individualism with social concern. Goethe, for instance, has been described as putting the heart into the human condition. With his great work Faust, he is even credited by the critic Gustav Seipt with imagining respectful, multicultural societies. German authors repeatedly confront us with the human condition and invoke a common humanity in which compassion is an essential quality. This is the best way to appreciate Bertolt Brecht's unforgettable creation, Mother Courage, who speaks to the victims of war everywhere. As I experienced myself some years ago when I attended a performance where the story was transposed to the conflicts in modern-day West Africa, and with such effect that much of the audience was reduced to tears. No less eloquent, a German-born disciple of peace and indeed of anti-colonialism was the polymath Nobel laureate Albert Schweitzer. The impact of German wordsmiths has been more than matched by the creations of its musicians and artists. Composers such as Bach, Mendelssohn, and Beethoven did not just make extraordinary music, but also used that medium to convey powerful statements about society. Beethoven's rendering of Schiller's Ode to Joy remains as powerful a testimony to our common humanity as has ever been created. Even our physical environment owes much to German genius. The shape of the modern city has in large part been determined by ideas of the Bauhaus movement. And indeed, here at this university, the newer parts of the campus are true to the principles of that school of art and architecture. Bauhaus also seems to have influenced such Irish artists as Louis Le Brocq and the great furniture designer Eileen Gray. In our own times, Germany has assumed a leading role in contributing to a just world order. On the contemporary international stage, we owe a debt of gratitude to its government for its sturdy defense of the human rights of freedom of speech and of privacy. The appointment a few days ago of a United Nations Special Rapporteur on the human right to privacy was in large part as a consequence of German diplomacy. Arguably, however, Germany's greatest contribution regarding human rights is its leadership for what we term transitional justice, in courageously engaging its own past in order to go forward in truth and with accountability. I trust that President Gauck will understand if it is with this point that I now refer to him. In 1990, Joachim Gauck, having been elected to the first freely elected parliament of the then German Democratic Republic, was selected as chairperson of the special committee overseeing the dissolution of the Ministry of State Security. From that year until 2000, he led Germany's program to deal with the vast files of intelligence on citizens, files that had been accumulated by the GDR secret police, the Stasi. In that role, Mr. Gauck has been described as a guide of the former East Germany's truth and reconciliation process, and has been likened in that regard to such leaders as Nelson Mandela. As the newspaper Der Spiegel put it, Mr. Gauck's efforts provided the nation with a kind of therapy. It gave Eastern Germans a gentle push to confront their past instead of suppressing it, and to face up to the suffering, the injuries, and the filth to which a system of repression had subjected them. Joachim Gauck's earlier life well suited him to his leadership role in transitional Germany. Born in Rostock in 1940, he had direct experience of the regime's repressive ways. His father spent many years deported to Siberia. He himself was denied the opportunity to study German language and literature. Instead, he turned to theology and became a pastor. When, in 1989, religious leaders assumed a central place in promoting democracy, Pastor Gauck played a pivotal role. He helped lead the popular movement New Forum in Rostock, and he convened religious ceremonies that preceded large-scale peaceful demonstrations. President Gauck has spoken movingly of his life and of the transformation of his country. In an address to students at the University of Yangon in Burma in 2014, he said, "I stand before you as a German who spent 2/3 of his life in the part of his country which was under the yoke of oppression and injustice. As a child, I experienced what it meant to have an innocent loved one arrested, disappear, and return many years later, both mentally and physically scarred. I know the longing to live free of fear and arbitrary actions by the state, to shape one's own life together with others. And above all, I will always remember the moment when people said goodbye to their fear, the moment when they decided to take their destiny into their own hands. In Eastern Germany, a democracy movement grew rapidly in late 1989 and brought about nothing less than a peaceful revolution." On 18 March 2012, Joachim Gauck became the 11th president of the Federal Republic of Germany. Since then, he has been tireless in propounding public ethics and a civic space that is grounded in a belief in inviolable human dignity, a society that, above all else, values freedom. In conclusion, allow me to refer again to the monument in Dublin. It is striking that each of the three graces gazes in a different direction. One seems to look inward as if in reflection on the past. Another stares out at us, focused on the present. The third looks far into the distance, seemingly concentrated on the future. In this fashion, I suggest that the statue depicts a very particular Germany, the one that President Gauck represents with such distinction, the one that the university honors today. Pre honorabilis praeses totaque universitas, presento vobis hunc meum filium quem scio tam moribus, quam doctrina habilem et idoneum, esse qui admitatur honoris causa, ad gradum doctoratus in utruque iure, tam civile tuam canonico, idque tibi fide mea testor expondea totique academiae.
Paritate mitte concessa, mitte te ad gradum doctoratus in utroque iure, honoris causa. Congratulations. Well done.
Pre honorabilis praeses, ceremonies rite confectis, finum quaeso facius huius convocationis universitariae.
Sehr geehrter Herr Bürgermeister, sehr geehrte
Mayor
Damen
of
und
Galway,
Herren Minister und Abgeordnete,
ministers,
sehr
members of
geehrte
both
Frau
houses of the
Vorsitzende des
Oireachtas,
Leitungsgremiums der Universität,
Mrs. Justice
sehr
Catherine
geehrter Herr
McGuinness,
Universitätspräsident,
President of the National
Exzellenz,
University of Ireland,
sehr geehrte Damen und Herren,
Excellency,
ganz
ladies and
zuerst
gentlemen,
danke für die
allow me to
Gratulation.
begin by
Vielen Dank.
thanking you for the
Touched my
citation.
heart.
You touched
Direktor
my heart,
Michael O'Flaherty
Michael
und
O'Flaherty,
Ihnen allen
and I thank
meinen
you all.
Dank und den Ausdruck meiner Freude,
I would like to
wie sehr
express
ich
my delight
glücklich bin, hier im schönen
at the
Galway
fact
zu sein.
that I can be here in
Ich
beautiful
weiß,
Galway
dass vielen
today.
Landsleuten, aber auch anderen
I know
Europäern
that
diese
many
Stadt als
of
die
my fellow
ihre von
citizens,
allen
but also
gilt.
many other Europeans, consider
Und dann
this
gibt es
city
noch
as the most
anscheinend,
Irish
das
of
habe ich noch
all.
nicht gehört, aber dem
And
Audit
that was
zufolge
news to me,
die
but
Situation, dass man die irische Sprache hier auf den
the
Straßen
Irish
hören kann,
language is said to
häufiger
be
als
heard
anderswo.
more widely here in the
Wenn ich
streets
in
of
Europa
Galway than
reise, dann
elsewhere in
fällt mir immer
Ireland.
wieder
Whenever
auf,
I
welch
travel
ungeheurer
around Europe,
Schatz
I notice
diese
time and
kulturelle
again how very
Vielgestaltigkeit
precious our
unseres
continent's
Kontinents
cultural
ist.
diversity is.
Galway und mit ihm seine
Galway
Universität,
and
das
its
ist ja
university
irgendwie auch ein wunderbares
is
Beispiel für die
a
Vielfalt
wonderful
Europas.
example of European
Und
diversity, I
aus diesem
believe.
Reichtum schöpft Europa
And
auch
it
seine
is
Kraft.
to this wealth of
Es
diversity
ist das
that
eine
our
Europa,
one Europe
das mit so
owes
unterschiedlichen
its
Sprachen
strength.
immer wieder
One
gemeinsame
Europe
Werte
speaking so
definieren
many
kann.
different languages, still
Das
able
ist
to
die andere
define
Kraftquelle,
shared
die wir auf
values.
unserem Kontinent
And
haben.
that is another source of
Und ganz
strength.
gewiss innerhalb
The
der
values which we
Europäischen
share
Union
on our
teilen,
continent, most
ist
especially
vor
within
allem
the
die
European
Achtung des
Union.
Individuums
Above all,
und
respect
seiner
for the
Rechte.
individual and their rights.
Und nur wenn Menschen mit
Only
unveräußerlichen
if an
Rechten
individual enjoys
ausgestattet sind,
inalienable
können
rights
sie ihre ganze
can they
Kraft
fully
entfalten.
develop their creative
Passend
energies.
also, dass
How
Sie
fitting
sich
it
hier an der
is,
National
therefore,
University
that
of
research into human rights
Ireland gerade auf
is
der
carried out right
Forschung
here
zu den
at the National
Menschenrechten
University of Ireland, Galway.
Das ist wertvoll, es verdient
This is
große
valuable
Anerkennung.
work which
Und es
deserves
freut
the
mich
greatest
als
recognition.
europäischer
And
Bürger
as a
und
European
als Präsident
citizen,
der
but also as the
Bundesrepublik
President of the Federal Republic of Germany, I
Menschenrechte
take
und
delight in
Europa,
this.
damit
Human
bin ich
rights
mitten in meiner
and
Rede.
Europe. I have thus
Doch
already
bevor ich
addressed the
allzu
theme
tief
of
in
my
mein
speech
heutiges
today,
Thema
but
gerate,
before I
möchte ich
look at
doch
this
zunächst
subject in
ein Wort
greater
an Sie
detail, I would
richten, Herr
first of all like to address a few
Universitätspräsident.
words to you, Dr. Brown, President of the
Sehr
National
dankbar
University
dafür,
of
dass
Ireland,
Sie mir
Galway.
eine so
Thank you
großzügige
very much
Würdigung zuteil werden
for your
lassen.
kind
Sie
words, which I
erweisen mir
very
damit
much
eine große
appreciate.
Ehre.
And
werde
above
immer
all,
an
I'm
diesen
grateful,
Tag
indeed,
denken.
very grateful that you're conferring such a
Meine
great
Damen und
honor on me
Herren,
for today. I will never
Nach dem Fall der
forget
Berliner
today.
Mauer und dem Ende des
Ladies and gentlemen,
Ost-West-Konflikts
following the fall
hegten
of the
wir alle
Berlin
in
Wall
Europa
and the
einen
end of the
Traum.
East-West conflict, we
Traum
in
vom
Europe
Kontinent der
cherished a
freien
dream,
und
the
gleichen
dream of a
Demokratien.
continent of free and equal
Und wir
democracies.
begannen auch, diesen
And
Traum,
we
diese
began to
Vision
turn this
Realität
political
werden zu
vision
lassen.
into reality.
So unterzeichneten die Teilnehmerstaaten
Thus,
der
the
Konferenz
states
für Sicherheit und
participating in the
Zusammenarbeit
Conference
in
on Security and
Europa,
Cooperation
darunter
in
die
Europe,
Sowjetunion,
including
im
the
November
Soviet Union,
1990 die Charta
signed the
von
Charter of Paris
für
for a
ein
new
neues
Europe in
Europa.
November 1990.
Sie bekannten sich zu dem Ziel, ich
They
zitiere,
undertook,
die Demokratie
and I
als
quote,
einzige
to
Regierungsform
build,
unserer Nation
consolidate and
aufzubauen,
strengthen democracy
zu
as the
festigen
only system of
und
government
zu
of our
stärken und
nations,
damit ein
and
neues
thus usher
Zeitalter
in
der
a
Demokratie,
new era of
des
democracy,
Friedens und der Einheit
peace
zu begründen.
and
Ende
unity
des
in
Zitats.
Europe. End of quote.
Dieses Ziel streben die Regierungen Europas noch
Europe's
immer an.
governments remain
Doch
committed to this
die
goal.
einstige Hoffnung,
However,
dass sich die liberale
the hope back
westliche
then
Idee von
that
der
the liberal
freiheitlichen
Western
Demokratie
concept of
an
democracy
immer mehr
would
Orten
gain
der Welt
acceptance in
durchsetzen
ever
würde,
more
sie hat
places
sich
around the
nicht
world
erfüllt
has not been
oder sie
fulfilled.
hat sich noch nicht erfüllt. Noch vor ein paar
And has
Jahren
not been
blickten
completely
wir
fulfilled.
Europäer hoffnungsvoll über
Just a
das
few
Mittelmeer
years
nach
ago,
Süden,
we
wo
Europeans
sich
looked full
ein
of
arabischer
hope
Frühling
across
zu
the
entfalten
Mediterranean
und
towards the
neue
south,
Demokratien
where an Arab Spring
hervorbringt,
seemed to be unfolding and creating
Doch,
new
wir haben es alle
democracies.
gesehen,
However,
statt
and we've
Wohlstand
all
und
been aware of what,
Demokratie
we're all aware of what
prägen
happened
heute
there.
Krisen und
Instead of prosperity and
Instabilität
democracy,
diese
the
südliche
European Union's
Nachbarschaft der
southern
Europäischen
neighbourhood
Union.
is marked by crises
Leider
and
gilt
instability
das auch für die
today.
östliche
And
Peripherie
unfortunately,
der
the same applies to the European
Und
Union's eastern
weltweit ist die
periphery.
Akzeptanz der Demokratie als
Around the world,
Regierungsform so
acceptance
niedrig
of
wie nie
democracy as
seit
a form of government
1989.
has not been this low since 1989. What happened? We know that the international order which evolved after 1990 has come under pressure. This trend has been evident for a long time, and unfortunately it has become more pronounced recently. However, it has been joined by something new, a phenomenon which, in my view, is one of the most important aspects of the crisis which have hit us, and that is that those forms of government which have little to do with democracy have gained ground. The autocracies which were on the defensive for a long time are now very much on the offensive and extolling their strengths to a domestic audience. In some cases, it is the promise of efficiency which makes them appear so attractive, and others, patriotic sentiments are satisfied. And the self-confidence of these opponents of liberal democracy grows with these apparent successes. They attack the supposed double standards of the West, which they accuse of demanding that human rights be respected, when in reality they are only concerned about their own interests. What they all have in common is that they oppose the vision which took shape in Paris all those years ago. Occasionally, some idea or gesture from these parallel worlds even finds support in European countries. I don't know what the situation is like in Ireland, but it does happen every once in a while in Germany. Often it is merely the resolve of the new authoritarian leaders which impresses others. Sometimes they inspire admiration because they seem to create scope for the desire for national autonomy, for national greatness. Undoubtedly, this support also reflects anti-Western reflexes. In some places, it has become almost popular to draw a distorted picture of the European Union, intransparent, unjust, undemocratic. In short, depicting Brussels as the enemy. The successes of populist forces on the left and right fringes of the political spectrum are a manifestation of this skepticism, and this is true for a great number of European countries. Their influence is even increasing in the more prosperous societies within the Union, which are regarded as very open. And this is particularly worrying when we remember which continent we're talking about. According to the current Global Peace Index, 15 of the 20 most peaceful countries in the world are in Europe. The old Europe, with its long history as a slaughterhouse in which devastating wars were waged, has become a continent of peace and freedom where individual citizens can explore their potential. The European Union stands, and this is what links it to its transatlantic partners, on a sound basis, our shared values. These values are inalienable human rights and the rule of law, the separation of powers, representative democracy, and popular sovereignty. Let us take a look back. The establishment of the European community was preceded by existential moments and experiences full of violence, pain, and suffering. The founding fathers of this union, of this community, were pioneers. They took Europe on an unprecedented journey. The European Union was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2012 for this service to humanity. How easy to forget, how quickly forgotten, really. Yes, and our European Union brought peace. It made possible dialogue and reconciliation, not least between Ireland and Britain. It is based on the idea that democracies freely opt to come together to form a united Europe. With its decision, the Nobel Committee made us all aware once more that European integration was such a success because it found ways to overcome old enmities and to develop a concept of cooperation and solidarity. We would therefore do well, also in the current crisis, to be frank and make our views known while maintaining our solidarity. We must not allow those who are seeking to revert to the politics of national egoism rather than to foster a balance of interests and cooperation within Europe to define the challenges ahead. And we have to confidently counter simple solutions by putting forward the challenging approaches which this spirit of cooperation engenders. We should also stress the encouraging signs and the successes. Many key reforms have been introduced. Although many Europeans may take their freedom for granted these days, there are still people all over the world who are endeavoring to attain this freedom which has been denied to them. Year after year, and in most regions of the world, let's not forget, it is increasingly difficult for freedom to prevail. Yet the longing for democracy and freedom is a basic human desire, and that too is why it is universal. And for that reason, this longing cannot be stilled on a durable basis by replacing civil liberties with material goods of social status. This view from the outside in itself highlights what the European Union has done for us. The, and I quote, recognition of inherent dignity and of equal and inalienable rights, as laid down in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, is one of the lessons learned from the horrific experiences of the Second World War. Human rights are not negotiable, even though we know that the road to their universal respect is long and that they only exist on paper in many parts of the world. However, European, especially German history, points very clearly to one conclusion. Human rights must not be sacrificed for power political interests, nor for the aspiration of a so-called cultural uniqueness. Udo Di Fabio, a former judge at the Federal Constitutional Court, which is our Supreme Court, described the thoughts and also the dignity of each individual as an innate attribute in every state, that is, in every political community. Human rights need people to breathe life into them. Human rights need people to defend them. And human rights need states based on them. Human rights must not be the lip service, which I experienced in the GDR and know of in other totalitarian states. It is because I know what I missed for many years that I say today, working to defend inalienable human rights must remain one of the highest aims for us Europeans. We are called upon to act to defend the inalienable rights of the individual wherever nationalistic feelings of superiority are on the rise today, wherever anti-Semitism or Islamophobia or other forms of xenophobia emerge today. We are all called upon. What we now call the European Community of Shared Values evolved over a long time. The Irish played an important role in this process of growth. Knowledge and learning from antiquity found their way into the Middle Ages and onto the European continent, thanks to Iro-Scottish monks. a long time ago, I grant you that, but let's not forget this, especially on such a day in this historic place. The German medievalist Arno Bost wrote that the journey undertaken by Irish monks molded the European continent into one spiritual entity for the first time since the Völkerwanderung. Reformation and Enlightenment, Renaissance and Humanism, the Republican ideas of the revolutions of 1789 and 1848. All of this is a shared European legacy from which ultimately the commitment to inalienable human rights was formed. That is the essence of our common bond. The stronger Europe's inner cohesion is, the more convincing and stronger Europe can work for and promote human rights and democracy in the world. How credible the European Union is in human rights issues depends in the current situation how we in Europe treat those who seek refuge with us. We should not forget that hardship and lack of freedom in their own countries once drove countless Irish and Germans to set off across the Atlantic to start a new life. It has left a stamp on the histories of both our countries and peoples. We should keep our doors open for such refugees. For our countries, human rights issues are an essential part of our foreign policy. For the first time, Germany has assumed the presidency in the UN Human Rights Council. In the year of the 70th anniversary of the United Nations, Ireland is currently also a member of the Council and is working there, just like Germany, on strengthening civil society around the world. It would be hard to find a more reliable partner in human rights policy than Ireland. The Irish Constitution, drawn up back in 1937, highlights comprehensive fundamental rights. The protection of human rights defenders is of special importance to the Irish government. I have met many of these extraordinary and dedicated people, and so I feel compelled to say that anyone who works peacefully to promote human rights deserves our protection, Europe's protection. Supporting human rights and human rights defenders around the world will remain a challenge for all of us. We should learn something from this task rather than doubt it. Ladies and gentlemen, Amnesty International's highest award was inspired by the verses of a great Irish poet, Seamus Heaney's From the Republic of Conscience. Heaney describes this Republic of Conscience as a still and sparse place where people turn inward, examine themselves, and find an enduring task. And I would like to put that as my testimony at the end of my speech. Let us all become ambassadors of conscience and uprightness, because I believe that people in all parts of the world can become ambassadors of conscience and uprightness. Indeed, we all can, if we only believe we can do it and find our own language. This is what I hope for the benefit of our countries, our European Union, and our rights as human beings. Thank you.
Thank you, President Gog, for your inspiring words. We are indeed honoured by your presence in NUI Galway today. Thank you also, Michael, for a very fine citation. Before we conclude this ceremony, I'd like to say take a moment to reflect on this visit and its significance. We all know Europe is going through a period of unprecedented economic turmoil. Difficult decisions have to be made, decisions which will affect the peoples and institutions of Europe for many years to come. President Gauck, in advance of your state visit to Ireland this week, you warned of the risks of anti-European populism and called on all moderate forces around the continent to speak up in the current debate. We are in Galway, a university city on the edge of Europe, a city built on creativity, home to artists, academics, and modern industry. Our city and our university have been immensely enriched by our place in Europe. On behalf of this community of scholars, on behalf of those of us here in the Atlantic seaboard, the periphery of Europe, who have benefited so much from the political principles and the practical supports which have built Europe, I join you, President Gauck, in speaking up for Europe. I believe you are correct. We cannot let the discourse on Europe's future be dominated by extremism. Europe needs a vision which transcends extremes, a vision of radical centrism. We must reconnect with the thinking that inspired John Monnet in the 1950s. Monnet's vision, which helped to bind the wounds of the most blood-stained continent in modern history and transformed Europe into a place of peace, prosperity, and democracy, governed by common principles, policies, and indeed a shared structure. Indeed, your own personal journey serves as an example to many Europeans. Throughout your life, you have stood as a champion of democracy and human rights. We in Galway are honoured to have you with us here today and to honour you with our honorary degree. I would like now to invite everybody here to join our guests for a reception in the quadrangle. Thank you very much.